So millennials prefer to rent rather than own property, at least that's according to new research. The findings show only 40% actually want to own a home. Let's dig a little deeper. Gil Sperling is the co-founder of the rental app Flow. Thank you very much for joining us, Gil. So what are we talking about here essentially when we say that millennials don't want to own property?
Yeah, and we actually term it generation rent. And what that means, and it's a trend that's obviously quite clear, is that millennials don't want to own property, and there are two main reasons for it. The first is actually how the inflation of rental costs has completely outstripped the inflation of wages. So it's inaffordability to actually own a home, even if you wanted to, especially at a first-time jobbers and late 20s. And secondly, it's because generation rent and millennials are actually quite keen to be transient. They're keen to be mobile and not be held down by something like a home that you own.
Right. So their lifestyle plays a part
is key,
in this. Right. Is there an opportunity, though, for marketers, for property owners to actually take advantage of this at all?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand it. And that, yes, so I think what they do need to understand more than the actual trend is that millennials not only want a certain lifestyle, but expect a certain way of communication and certain transparency these days. And it's really technology that's enabled it, and all of us, and you and I, that use our phone to communicate instantly with things like WhatsApp. And that is absolutely lacking in property. So for big landlords or small landlords that do want to take advantage of generation rent, I think primarily it's important to understand generation rent and things like technology and how they communicate, and of course the trend of wanting to rent and wanting a lifestyle and kind of provide for that.
If we compare what South African millennials are going through to maybe the rest of the world or the rest of the continent, what do we find?
We find that we're actually on par in terms of global. So this is a global trend for sure. Definitely, rental has been a trend that's far more advanced in the bigger cities around the world, in the New Yorks and the Berlins. The affordability there is much less. Renting a place in New York is in some cases, I actually have a couple of friends that 60% of their salary go to rent. Here it's about 30%.
Sure.
So you cannot own unless you're a big executive or have a very big business. So that trend has been going on for a while, but I'd say we're on par. We're not far behind. The trend is absolutely clear here.
What kind of spaces are they renting? Flats, houses, cottages?
Yeah, I mean, I think urbanisation is something that's obviously quite dominant in the big cities around the world, and definitely happening very fast here in South Africa. Cape Town especially is becoming urban, very, very urbanised, very concentrated and far more dense, and of course that means apartments and city living, and which means that there is that opportunity to better connect to a neighbourhood, and of course that's where technology could appease generation rent.
Right, so the old belief that it's better to own property than to rent property, not really a big factor for millennials.
Well, I think that there's actually been a lot of information available to younger, to millennials around what that actually means. Owning property could have a certain novelty to it, but rather you should make an informed investment decision. Right, so you don't have to invest in property to invest. One should invest. I think it's important to be conscious and aware of managing your wealth. Even if you're early and you're young and you're earning 15 grand a month, and that needs to come into play. But you don't have to own property. Property is an absolutely very strong asset class in terms of investment, but there are others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming through this morning
Thanks
and
for having
chatting
me.
to us. Gil Sperling, co-founder of the rental app Flow.